A street kid brought a black bag to the hospital, but when they opened it, Tyler's small hands trembled as he clutched the black bag to his chest. He knew he had to get to the hospital before it was too late, but his shaky legs could barely hold him up after running so far. Nurse Jennifer was finishing her night shift when she saw the boy approach the reception desk. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with messy, curly hair, torn clothes, and dirt stains. What caught her attention most was the determination in his eyes and the black bag he gripped tightly. "Miss, please," his voice was urgent. "You need to see what's inside. It's really important." Jennifer stepped closer slowly, noticing how the boy guarded the bag like it was treasure. Years of experience in the ER had taught her not to judge by appearances. "Take it easy, sweetheart. What do you have there?" "I can't say here." Tyler looked around nervously. "But you need to see it. It's about one of your patients, Mrs. Margaret, in room 507. Jennifer's heart raced. Margaret Wilson was a special patient, hospitalized for 3 months with a rare illness no doctor could fully diagnose. The 68-year-old woman was fading every day, and her family was starting to lose hope. "How do you know about Mrs. Margaret?" Jennifer asked, now truly intrigued. "Please, miss, call someone important. What's in here could save her life." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. Jennifer hesitated for a moment, but something about the boy's desperate sincerity made her decide. She picked up the phone and called Dr. Richard Thompson, the physician in charge of Margaret's case. "Doctor, sorry to bother you, but there's a situation here you need to see. It's about patient Margaret Wilson." As they waited, Jennifer tried talking to the boy, but he stayed quiet, only repeating that it was urgent. His eyes never left the black bag, and she noticed his hands were bruised as if he'd dug something up with his bare hands. Dr. Richard arrived within minutes, still wearing his wrinkled lab coat from a long shift. He was a 50-year-old man, with graying hair and tired eyes, someone who had seen plenty of suffering. "What's going on, Jennifer?" "This boy says he has something important about Mrs. Margaret," she explained. Richard looked at Tyler skeptically, but before he could say anything, the boy held out the bag toward him. "Doctor, you need to check this. It has to do with what's making Mrs. Margaret sick." "Kid, I don't know what kind of joke this is, but it's not a joke," Tyler shouted, tears welling in his eyes. "I know no one believes me because I'm a street kid, but I swear it's true. Please just look inside." There was something in the boy's genuine anguish that made Richard pause. He took the black bag and placed it on the counter. Jennifer stepped closer, curious. Carefully, the doctor opened the bag. What they saw inside left them speechless. There were several strange objects, small pouches of dried herbs, vials of dark liquids, and, most disturbing, old photographs of Margaret in her youth, along with notes in shaky handwriting. "Where did you get this?" Richard asked, now fully alert. Tyler took a deep breath before answering. "At the old house on Magnolia Street. Mrs. Margaret used to live there before she got sick. I sleep in the backyard sometimes, and I saw when they took her away 3 months ago. After that, a strange woman started showing up every week." Richard picked up one of the notes and began to read. His eyes widened as he understood what was written. They were detailed instructions about substance dosages, specific times, and observations about symptoms. "Jennifer, call security. And ask them not to let anyone leave the hospital. And call the lab. We need to analyze this urgently." "What's going on, doctor?" Jennifer asked, already picking up the phone. "If this is what I think it is..." Richard didn't finish the sentence. He turned to Tyler. "Son, you may have just saved Mrs. Margaret's life, but I need you to tell me everything." "Absolutely everything you saw." Tyler nodded, relieved that someone finally believed him. What he didn't know was that his discovery was only the beginning of a far more complex and painful scheme than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Richard took Tyler to a more private room, away from curious eyes. Jennifer followed, bringing water and some cookies for the boy, who looked like he hadn't eaten in days. "Start from the beginning," Richard asked, recording the conversation on his phone. "How do you know Mrs. Margaret?" Tyler gulped down the water before speaking. She's always been kind to me. When I passed by her house, she'd give me food. Sometimes she'd let me sleep in the backyard when it rained too hard. She's a very good woman." "And when did she get sick?" Richard asked, taking notes. "It happened suddenly. One day she was fine, the next she started feeling bad. I saw when the ambulance came to take her. I was worried, but there was nothing I could do. I'm just a street kid. No one would let me visit her in the hospital." Jennifer's heart ached. How many times had she seen situations like this, where the most vulnerable were ignored even when they had important information? "And this woman you mentioned?" Richard continued. "She showed up a few days after they took Mrs. Margaret. At first, I thought she was family, but she acted strange. She'd go into the house with a key, stay there for hours, always at night, always alone." "Can you describe her?" Tyler closed his eyes, trying to remember. "She was around 40, long black hair, always wore dark clothes, had a small scar on her chin and—" He hesitated. "And what?" Richard urged. "She talked to herself. Weird stuff about finally getting what was rightfully hers, about waiting so many years. It scared me." Richard exchanged a worried glance with Jennifer. This was taking an unexpected turn. "How did you get these items?" the doctor asked. Last night she was there again, but this time she was different, nervous. She grabbed a bunch of stuff from the house and threw it in a trash bag. I heard her say on the phone that the plan had gone wrong, that the old woman was taking too long. After she left, I waited a little and went to see what she'd thrown out. "And you found all this in the trash?" Tyler shook his head. "Not just that. There was more, but I could only take what fit in my bag. When I saw the pictures of Mrs. Margaret and those weird things, I knew something was wrong. I spent all night thinking about what to do until I decided to come here." Richard stood abruptly. "Jennifer, I need you to stay with Tyler. I'm taking this for immediate analysis and checking on Mrs. Margaret's condition. If my suspicions are right—" He didn't finish, hurrying out of the room. Jennifer sat beside Tyler, who was now shaking, maybe from exhaustion, maybe from relief at having shared his discovery. "You were very brave," she said gently. "Mrs. Margaret was the only person who treated me like a human being," Tyler replied, tears streaming down his face. "I couldn't let anything bad happen to her." As they waited, Jennifer couldn't help but think about how often society overlooks the invisible. Tyler was just a street kid, but he'd noticed things all the doctors and nurses had missed. Half an hour later, the hospital was in an uproar. Richard had ordered comprehensive toxicology tests on Margaret, and the preliminary results were alarming. Traces of rare substances were found in her blood, substances that matched exactly what was described in the notes Tyler had discovered. The most shocking moment came when Richard decided to speak with Margaret, who was conscious but very weak. "Mrs. Margaret, do you know anyone who might have access to your home? Someone with a key?" Margaret, lying in the hospital bed, looking frail and exhausted, widened her eyes. "Only my niece Susan. Why did something happen to my house?" Richard felt a chill run down his spine. "Your niece? Is she a woman with long black hair and a small scar on her chin?" "Yes," Margaret replied slowly. "How do you know?" "She hasn't visited me in weeks. She said she was traveling." The doctor knew he had to act carefully. He called the hospital administration and explained the situation. Within hours, a discreet investigation was underway. What they discovered in the following hours was even more disturbing. Susan Wilson Brooks, Margaret's niece, was deeply in debt. Investigations revealed she had found out she was the sole beneficiary of her aunt's will, which included not only the house, but also considerable savings accumulated over a lifetime of work. But Susan's greed had met an obstacle. Margaret was a healthy woman who could live for many more years. That's when she devised a sinister plan to slowly poison her aunt, making it look like a mysterious illness. The substances Tyler had found were rare poisons, extracted from plants Susan had secretly cultivated. Administered in small doses, over time, they created symptoms that confused doctors and slowly deteriorated Margaret's health. Dr. Richard returned to the room where Tyler waited with Jennifer. The boy looked up hopefully. "You saved her life, Tyler," Richard said emotionally. If it weren't for you, we might never have discovered the truth." Tyler began to cry, this time with relief. "Is she going to be okay? Now that we know what's causing the illness, we can treat it. It'll take time, but I believe she'll make a full recovery." "Can I see her?" Tyler asked timidly. Richard smiled. "Of course you can. But first, we need to take care of you too. When was the last time you had a proper meal?" While Jennifer took Tyler to shower and change, the hospital kept donations for cases like this. Richard went to speak with Margaret about everything they had uncovered. The revelation was devastating for the elderly woman. Discovering that the niece she had raised like a daughter had tried to kill her for money broke her heart in a way no physical illness ever could. "It can't be," Margaret wept. "I took care of her since she was little. After her mother died, I gave her everything. How could she?" Richard held the patient's hand. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Margaret, but you should know you were saved by someone who genuinely cares about your well-being." "Who?" she asked through tears. "A boy named Tyler. He said you've always been kind to him." Margaret stopped crying for a moment. "Tyler? Little Tyler who used to sleep in my backyard? It was him?" "Yes, he risked everything to bring us the evidence. He's here at the hospital now." "I need to see him," Margaret said firmly. "I need to thank him." An hour later, Tyler timidly entered room 507. He was clean, wearing donated clothes, but still had the same worried expression. "Mrs. Margaret," he called softly. "Tyler." Margaret stretched out her weak arms. "Come here, my boy." Tyler approached slowly, and to everyone's surprise, Margaret pulled him into a tight hug, crying. "You saved my life," she whispered. "My little angel saved my life." "You've always been so good to me," Tyler replied, also crying. "I couldn't let anything bad happen to you." Jennifer and Richard watched the scene, deeply moved. In Sichuan, all his years of medicine, Richard had rarely witnessed such a pure act of kindness. "Tyler," Margaret said, cupping the boy's face in her hands, "where are you living now?" The boy lowered his eyes. "Here and there. Sometimes in your backyard, sometimes other places." Margaret looked at Richard. "Doctor, what do I need to do to take this boy with me when I leave here?" "Mrs. Margaret, you still need to recover," Richard began. "I know, but this boy saved my life when my own family tried to kill me. He's more family to me than any blood relative. What needs to be done?" Richard smiled. "We'll need to speak with Child Protective Services, check Tyler's legal status, but if this is your wish, and his too—" "It is!" Tyler exclaimed, looking at Margaret with shining eyes. "I want to, Mrs. Margaret." In the days that followed, things moved quickly. Susan was arrested while trying to flee the city. The evidence Tyler had found, combined with toxicology reports and a search of her home that uncovered more poison and incriminating documents, ensured her conviction. Margaret began improving rapidly once the proper treatment started. The poison Susan had used was insidious, but hadn't caused permanent damage. Within 2 weeks, she was already walking the hospital halls, always accompanied by Tyler. The boy had become something of a celebrity in the hospital. Everyone wanted to meet the little hero who had saved Margaret, but Tyler remained shy, preferring to spend time at his rescuer's bedside, reading to her or simply talking. The process for Margaret to gain custody of Tyler was surprisingly smooth. The boy had no known family. He'd been living on the streets for 2 years since his grandmother passed. Child Protective Services was moved by the bond between them and Margaret's determination to care for him. "Are you sure about this?" the social worker asked during one visit. "Raising a child at your age isn't easy." "Young lady," Margaret replied firmly, "I survived an attempted murder. I think I can handle raising a child. Besides, I won't just be taking care of him. He's already proven he takes care of me too." But not everything was easy. Margaret still had to grapple with Susan's betrayal. During therapy sessions at the hospital, she poured out her pain. "I raised her like my own daughter," Margaret told the psychologist. "When my sister died, Susan was only 5. I gave up marriage, having my own children, to care for her. How could she do this to me?" The psychologist, Dr. Sandra, listened carefully. "Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us deepest. But look, Mrs. Margaret, You've also discovered love can come from unexpected places. It was true, Tyler had become the light in Margaret's darkness. The boy, in turn, flourished under her care and attention. Jennifer, who had grown fond of them both, visited daily. "His transformation is incredible," Jennifer remarked to Richard one day. "He seems like a different boy." "The power of love and care," Richard replied. "But you know what amazes me most? How he, living on the streets, noticed things we professionals missed." "I think it's because he truly cared," Jennifer reflected. "We see so many patients that sometimes we lose that human connection." Jennifer's observation made Richard think. How often did they treat symptoms without seeing the whole person? Tyler, with no medical knowledge, had saved Margaret because he saw her as she was, a kind soul who deserved protection. 3 weeks after being hospitalized, Margaret was discharged. It was an emotional day. Tyler had prepared a surprise with Jennifer's help, a small, colorful sign that read, "Welcome to our new life, Grandma Margaret." "Grandma?" Margaret asked, moved when she saw the sign. "Can I call you that?" Tyler asked shyly. "If you don't want me to, it's the best gift I've ever received." Margaret hugged him tightly. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out." Now continuing. The return home was bittersweet. The house where Margaret had lived for 40 years now carried painful memories. Every corner reminded her of Susan's betrayal. Tyler noticed her sadness. "We can repaint everything," he suggested. "Make it feel different." Margaret smiled. "You know what? That's a great idea. Let's turn this old house into our new home." But the challenges were just beginning. Margaret discovered that Susan had taken out loans in her name, using her documents. The financial situation she thought was stable was now in chaos. "Don't worry," Tyler said when Margaret shared her concerns. "I can help. I know how to do lots of things." "You need to focus on school," Margaret replied firmly. "You've already missed too much time." The adjustment wasn't easy. Tyler, used to the freedom of the streets, sometimes felt stifled by rules and schedules. Margaret, in turn, had to learn how to be a mother at 68. There were moments of conflict, like when Tyler came home late from school during the first month. "Where were you?" Margaret asked, worried. "The school called hours ago saying you'd left." "I went for a walk," Tyler replied defensively. "I needed to think." "Think? Tyler, I was terrified. I thought something had happened." "Sorry," he murmured. "It's just... sometimes it's really hard. The kids at school call me a street kid. They say I won't last long, that I'll go back to the streets soon." Margaret's heart broke. She pulled Tyler to sit beside her on the couch. "Look at me," she said gently. "You're not a street kid anymore. You're my grandson, understand? And as for those kids, they don't know what you're capable of. You saved a life, Tyler. How many of them can say that?" "But it's hard, Grandma," Tyler vented. "They have things I don't even know about. They talk about places I've never been, food I've never tried." "Then let's learn together," Margaret suggested. "I also have a lot to learn about being a grandma. How about we make a list of things we want to try together?" The idea lifted Tyler's spirits. In the following weeks, the two embarked on small adventures. Margaret took him to the movies for the first time, to the zoo, and to simple restaurants that were new to him. Tyler, in turn, taught Margaret about resilience, about finding joy in the little things. Jennifer continued visiting regularly. She had become a dear friend, part of this unexpected family that was forming. "You two are inspiring," she said during dinner one night. "It shows that family isn't just about blood. Family is about choice," Margaret replied, looking at Tyler fondly. "And I choose this boy every day." But the past still haunted them. Susan's trial was approaching, and Margaret was summoned to testify. The thought of facing her niece terrified her. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," the lawyer said. "We have enough evidence." "No," Margaret answered with determination. "I need to do this, for myself and for Tyler. He was brave enough to save me. I need to be brave too." On the day of the trial, Tyler insisted on going with her. Margaret tried to dissuade him, but he stood firm. "You were there for me when I needed you. Now I'm here for you." The courtroom was packed. The case had caught the media's attention. The story of the homeless boy who saved an elderly woman moved the city. When Margaret walked in hand with Tyler, there was a murmur of emotion. Seeing Susan in the defendant's seat was painful. The woman Margaret had raised as her own now stared at her with cold, resentful eyes. During her testimony, Margaret remained composed, recounting the years of care for her niece, the trust she had placed in her, and the pain of betrayal. When the prosecutor asked about Tyler, she grew emotional. "This boy showed me that true love has nothing to do with blood. While my niece tried to kill me for money, he, who had nothing, risked everything to save me." Susan was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Upon hearing the verdict, she finally showed emotion, but it was anger, not remorse. "This is all your fault," she screamed at Margaret. "You always treated me like a burden. I deserved that money." Margaret didn't respond. She simply squeezed Tyler's hand and left the courtroom with her head held high. Outside, reporters swarmed them, eager for the hero boy's story. Tyler hid behind Margaret, uncomfortable with the attention. "Please respect our privacy," Margaret asked. "We just want to move on with our lives," but one reporter persisted. "Tyler, what would you say to other kids living on the streets?" Tyler hesitated, then answered in a quiet but clear voice, "That there's always hope, and that kindness creates kindness." The boy's simple words moved everyone. In the days that followed, their story inspired a wave of solidarity. People began donating to children's shelters and volunteering for social projects. Margaret received several offers of financial help, but declined most. "We didn't do this for money," she explained. "We have enough to live with dignity." But she accepted help in an unexpected way. Dr. Richard, impressed by Tyler's intelligence and determination, offered to be his educational sponsor. "The boy has potential," he told Margaret. "With the right education, he could go far. I'd like to help with school costs if you'll allow it." Margaret was moved. "Doctor, you've already done so much for us." "You've taught me a valuable lesson," Richard replied. "About not ignoring society's invisible. It's the least I can do." With Richard's support, Tyler was enrolled in a private school with a scholarship program. The beginning was tough. Years on the streets had left huge gaps in his education. But the boy was determined. Margaret spent hours helping him with homework even when she struggled herself. "Grandma, you don't have to," Tyler said one night, watching her wrestle with a math problem. "Yes, I do," she replied stubbornly. "If you're learning, I'm learning too." It was Jennifer who suggested a tutor. She knew a college student, Kevin, who needed extra money. The 22-year-old turned out to be perfect for the job, patient, creative, and able to connect with Tyler. "He's brilliant," Kevin told Margaret after a few weeks. "He sees things differently, probably because of his life experience. With the right support, he'll overcome these challenges quickly." And Kevin was right. Within 6 months, Tyler had not only caught up, but surpassed many of his classmates. His essay on what is family won a school award. "Family isn't where you're born. It's where you choose to grow," he wrote. "It's who welcomes you, without asking where you came from, only where you'll go together." Margaret cried as she read it. "You have a gift with words," she said proudly. "I learned from you," Tyler replied. "Remember the stories you told me when I slept in the backyard?" Life went on with its ups and downs. Margaret faced a health setback. The months of poisoning had left lasting effects. Tyler, now 11 years old, cared for her with the same devotion she had always shown. "You shouldn't skip school," Margaret protested weakly, seeing him by her bedside. "School can wait," Tyler replied firmly. "Family can't." It was during this relapse that an unexpected revelation occurred. Kevin, the tutor, was helping Tyler organize Margaret's papers when he found old documents in the attic. "Mrs. Margaret," Kevin said hesitantly, "did you know you have a sister?" Margaret was confused. "My sister died 20 years ago. Susan's mother." "Not her. This says you have a half-sister, Elizabeth Taylor, your father's daughter from another relationship." Margaret was shocked. Her father had died when she was a teenager. She'd never known about another daughter. "It must be a mistake," she said. But Kevin showed her the documents. They were genuine. The discovery shook Margaret. Her whole life, She'd believed she was an only child after her sister's death. Now she learned there was someone else in the world who shared her blood. "Should we look for her?" Tyler asked, seeing Margaret's distress. "I don't know," Margaret admitted. "After everything with Susan, I'm scared." "But Grandma," Tyler argued with wisdom beyond his years, "you taught me that family isn't just about blood. If she's a good person, we gain an aunt. If she's not, we lose nothing." The boy's simple logic made sense. With Kevin's help and his internet skills, they began their search. They discovered Elizabeth Taylor lived in a town 200 miles away. "She's a widow, has 3 grown children," Kevin read from the information he found. "Works as a retired teacher." Margaret decided to write a letter. With Tyler's help, she carefully crafted a message, explaining who she was and how she'd learned about her. The reply came 3 weeks later. Elizabeth was as surprised as Margaret. She'd known about her half-sister, but their father had never allowed contact. "I've always wanted to meet you," Elizabeth wrote. "But Dad said your mother wouldn't allow it. After he died, I didn't know how to find you." Their first meeting was set at a cafe halfway between their towns. Margaret was nervous, with Tyler by her side for support. "What if she doesn't like me?" Margaret asked anxiously. "Impossible," Tyler replied confidently. "You're the best person in the world." When Elizabeth walked into the cafe, there was, no doubt, she was the image of Margaret, just a few years younger. The two stared at each other for a moment before embracing, tears flowing. "I've waited my whole life for this," Elizabeth said emotionally. "I didn't even know I needed this until now," Margaret replied. Tyler watched, smiling. Seeing Margaret happy after so much pain warmed his heart. Elizabeth turned out to be everything Susan wasn't. Kind, selfless, genuinely happy to meet her sister. When she heard Tyler's story, she hugged him too. "So I have a great nephew," she said, smiling, "who saved my sister. You're special, young man." Their meetings became regular. Elizabeth visited Margaret and Tyler once a month, sometimes bringing her children. The house that once held only loneliness was now full of life and laughter. "You know," Margaret said one night after a particularly joyful visit, "I thought my life was over when I found out about Susan. But it was just the beginning of something better." "You deserve to be happy," Tyler replied, snuggled beside her on the couch. "We deserve it," Margaret corrected. "Both of us?" A year had passed since that fateful day in the hospital. Tyler, now 12, was unrecognizable from the street kid he'd once been. An excellent student, beloved by his teachers, he'd even made real friends at school. But he hadn't forgotten his roots. With Margaret's support, he started a school project to collect donations for homeless children. "I want to help others like me," he explained, "to show them there's hope." The project was a success. Jennifer helped by connecting with the hospital, Richard contributed financially, and even Elizabeth Taylor mobilized her town. During one of the donation deliveries, Tyler met a girl who reminded him of himself years ago. Small, dirty, with wary but hopeful eyes. "Hi," he said gently. "My name is Tyler. I came to bring you some things." "Why?" the girl asked suspiciously. "No one does anything for free." Tyler smiled sadly, recognizing his own past distrust. "Because someone did it for me, and it changed my life." He briefly told his story. The girl's eyes lit up. "So it's possible to get off the streets?" she asked hopefully. "It's possible," Tyler confirmed. "But it takes courage and believing you." "I deserve good things," Margaret watched from afar, proud. Her boy was repaying the world with the kindness they had built together. That night, Tyler was quiet during dinner. "What's wrong?" Margaret asked, concerned. "That girl today. She reminded me of how I used to be. There's so much suffering in the world, Grandma." Margaret held his hand. "Yes, there is a lot of suffering, but there's also a lot of love. You're proof of that." "I wish I could help more," Tyler said, frustrated. "You are helping," Margaret assured him. "One person at a time, that's how we change the world." But the universe had more tests in store. Margaret received a call from her lawyer. Susan wanted to see her. She had requested a visit in prison. "I won't go," Margaret said immediately. "She said it's important," the lawyer insisted, "that she needs to tell you something about your father." That piqued Margaret's curiosity. After much thought and talking with Tyler, she decided to go. The prison was a depressing place. Seeing Susan in an inmate's uniform was shocking. The woman had lost weight, aged years in months. "Why did you call me?" Margaret asked directly. Susan lowered her eyes. "I need to tell you the truth about what Dad told me before he died." Margaret's heart raced. Susan's father, Margaret's brother-in-law, had died 5 years ago. "He said you weren't your father's legitimate daughter," Susan dropped the bombshell. "That your mother had an affair. That Elizabeth Taylor was his only real child." Margaret felt the world spin. "That's a lie." "It's true," Susan insisted. "He had documents, tests. He said that's why your father never let the sisters meet. He didn't want the truth to come out." "Why are you telling me this now?" Margaret asked, fighting back tears. "Because I realized blood means nothing," Susan said bitterly. "You raised me like a daughter, and I tried to kill you. That street boy saved you without even knowing you. I thought you deserved the truth, even if it hurts." Margaret left the prison devastated. Everything she believed about her identity was in question. At home, she told Tyler everything. "So what?" was the boy's simple reply. "What do you mean, so what?" Margaret asked, surprised. "You're still the same person, kind, generous, my grandma. What difference does it make whose daughter you are?" Tyler's wisdom calmed her, but Margaret needed to know the truth. She sought out Elizabeth Taylor and told her everything. "Let's take a DNA test," Elizabeth suggested practically. "But I want you to know you're my sister no matter the result." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The wait for the results was agonizing. Margaret barely slept, tormented by doubts. Tyler did his best to cheer her up. "Grandma, remember when you said family is a choice?" he said one night. "Well, there you go. You chose Elizabeth as your sister. She chose you. The rest is just details." When the results arrived, Margaret's hands trembled. Tyler and Elizabeth were with her. "Do you want me to read it?" Elizabeth offered. Margaret took a deep breath and opened the envelope. She read silently, tears streaming down her face. "What does it say?" Tyler asked anxiously. "That we're sisters," Margaret said, showing him the paper. "Real half-sisters." Susan lied. The relief was overwhelming. Elizabeth hugged Margaret tightly. "Even if we weren't, you'd still be my sister," Elizabeth said emotionally. Later, Margaret's lawyer investigated and uncovered the truth. Susan had fabricated the story as a last attempt to hurt Margaret, to plant doubt and suffering even from prison. "Some people are like that," the lawyer said. "Unable to accept responsibility, they'd rather destroy others." The experience, though painful, strengthened the bonds between Margaret, Tyler, and Elizabeth even more. They proved that their family, built on love and choice, was stronger than lies and manipulation. Time kept passing. Tyler grew not just in height, but in character. At 13, he was elected class representative. His speech moved everyone. "I've learned it doesn't matter where we come from, but where we're going," he said, "and that love can transform any life." Margaret cried with pride. Her boy was becoming an admirable young man. Then the past came knocking again, but this time in a different way. A woman appeared at Margaret's house claiming to be Tyler's mother. Margaret felt the ground disappear beneath her. Tyler, who was at school, knew nothing yet. "How can I believe you?" Margaret asked defensively. The woman, who introduced herself as Melissa, showed photos. The resemblance to Tyler was undeniable. "I was an addict," Melissa admitted shamefully. "I left him with my mother when he was 5 and disappeared. When I came back, Mom had passed away and Tyler was gone." "And why show up now?" Margaret questioned, protective. "I've been clean for 2 years," Melissa explained. "I've been searching for him all this time. I saw the news story about you a few months ago, but I needed to be sure before coming." Panic rose in Margaret. After everything, could she lose Tyler? "What do you want?" she asked directly. "To meet my son," Melissa said tearfully. "To ask for forgiveness. I don't want to take him from you. I know you're his mother now. I just want a chance to be part of his life." Margaret didn't know what to do. She called Richard and Jennifer, asking for advice. They came immediately. "It's a delicate situation. Richard said after hearing everything. Legally, she has rights as the biological mother. But Tyler has the right to choose, Jennifer added. He's old enough to have a say. Margaret knew she had to tell Tyler, but how? How to tell the boy that the mother he thought was dead was alive? She waited for him to come home from school, prepared his favorite snack, and with a heavy heart told him everything. Tyler listened silently, processing the information. When Margaret finished, he stayed quiet for several long minutes. She abandoned me, he finally said. She was sick, Tyler. Addiction is a disease. You would never abandon me, Tyler said, looking into Margaret's eyes. Not even if you were sick. No, never, Margaret confirmed. But Tyler, she's your biological mother. Maybe she deserves a chance to explain. Do you want me to leave? Tyler asked fearfully. Never, Margaret hugged him tightly. You're my grandson, my boy. Nothing changes that. But maybe we can let her be a small part of your life? Tyler thought for days. It was a difficult time. He grew quiet, introspective. Margaret ached, seeing his pain. Finally, with a psychologist mediating, a meeting was arranged between Tyler and Melissa. Margaret went along for support. The meeting was tense. Melissa cried upon seeing her son, tried to hug him, but Tyler pulled away. Why did you leave me? He asked bluntly. Melissa told her story, the extreme poverty, the desperation, the drugs as an escape, how she thought he'd be better off with his grandmother, how by the time she wanted to come back it was too late. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just wanted you to know that I always loved you, even when I made horrible choices. Love isn't about abandoning, Tyler replied sharply. You're right, Melissa said, lowering her head. But sometimes we do terrible things to the people we love when we're sick. Margaret saw something soften in Tyler's gaze. He understood about sick people doing bad things. After all, he had saved Margaret from exactly that. I don't want to live with you, Tyler said plainly. Mrs. Margaret is my grandma, my family. I know, Melissa said quickly. I don't want that. I just wish I could see you sometimes. Get to know the amazing man you're becoming. Tyler looked at Margaret, who nodded encouragingly. Maybe, he said slowly. We can start slow, coffee once in a while. The relief on Melissa's face was visible. That would be more than I deserve. In the following months, they established a cautious routine. Melissa visited once a month, always supervised. Tyler kept his emotional distance, but little by little. He got to know the mother he never had. It's weird, he confessed to Margaret. Seeing her makes me remember things I thought I'd forgotten. Memories can be painful, Margaret said understandingly. Some are good, Tyler admitted. I remember her singing to me when I was really little. Margaret swallowed the jealousy she felt. She knew it was important for Tyler to process this past. The relationship between Tyler and Melissa remained cordial but distant. Melissa respected the boundaries, grateful for the chance to at least know her son. She always made it clear that Margaret was his real mother. You did for him what I couldn't, Melissa told Margaret privately. I'll be forever grateful. One day, during a routine visit to the hospital, Margaret ran into the little patient she had met the day Tyler saved her life. The boy, now recovered, ran to hug her. Mrs. Margaret, he shouted happily. The boy's mother approached, emotional. You don't know how grateful we are. Your grandson didn't just save you. He gave us hope. Margaret smiled, proud of Tyler. How many lives had been touched by that act of courage? At 14, Tyler won a full scholarship to one of the best schools in the city. His essay about second chances had impressed the board. Grandma, I did it, he yelled as he came home, jumping with joy. Margaret hugged him tightly, crying with happiness. I always knew you were special. I'm only special because you made me believe I was, Tyler replied. The school change was challenging. The environment was more competitive. The students came from wealthy families. Once again, Tyler felt out of place. They talk about trips to Europe like it's normal, he vented to Margaret. So what? Margaret answered. You have experiences they'll never have. You know real life. You understand the value of things. But it's hard, Grandma. The best things in life are hard, Margaret said wisely, but they're worth it. As always, Margaret was right. Tyler soon found his place, impressing teachers with his unique perspective and maturity. He made true friends who valued him for who he was. One of those friends was Brandon, the son of a wealthy but down-to-earth family. The two became inseparable. "Your grandma is amazing," Brandon said after dinner at Margaret's house. "My grandparents only talk about money and appearances." "She really is special," Tyler agreed proudly. Brandon started visiting regularly. Margaret welcomed him as she did everyone, and soon he was calling her Grandma too. "I always wanted..." "Her real grandma," Brandon confessed one day. "I've got plenty of love to go around," Margaret replied, ruffling his hair. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Margaret, now 70, was healthy and active. Tyler, a brilliant teenager with a promising future. Maria's extended family, from Jennifer to Richard, even Melissa in her limited participation, created a network of support and love. It was then that fate decided to test this carefully built family once again. Margaret began having memory lapses. Small at first, forgetting where she left her keys, repeating stories. Tyler was the first to notice. "Grandma, you've already told me that 3 times today," he said gently. Margaret laughed. "I'm getting old, my dear." But the lapses worsened. Margaret forgot appointments, sometimes seemed confused about where she was. Tyler, now 15, grew frightened. "Let's go to the doctor," he insisted. "It's nothing," Margaret resisted, "just tiredness." But Tyler didn't give up. He called Richard, who immediately scheduled tests. The diagnosis was devastating: early-stage Alzheimer's. "No," Margaret said in denial. "I can't forget. I have to take care of Tyler." "We'll take care of each other," Tyler said, holding her hand. "Like we always have." The following months were painfully adjusting. Margaret had good days and bad days. On good days, she was her usual self. On bad days, sometimes she didn't recognize Tyler. "Who are you?" she asked one day, frightened. "What are you doing in my house?" Tyler swallowed his tears. "I'm Tyler, Grandma." "Your grandson?" "I don't have a grandson," Margaret said, confused. "Susan doesn't have children." These moments broke Tyler's heart, but he stayed strong, caring for her as she had cared for him. Elizabeth moved in temporarily to help. Jennifer visited daily. Richard arranged for the best specialists. Everyone rallied around Margaret. "It's not fair," Tyler cried in Jennifer's arms one night. "She doesn't deserve this." "No one does," Jennifer said gently. "But she has you, she has all of us. She's not alone." Tyler created a photo album, writing stories under each picture. On Margaret's bad days, he showed them, recounting the stories, trying to anchor her memories. "Look, Grandma," he pointed to a photo of them the day she left the hospital. "Remember? That's when we started our life together." Sometimes it worked. Margaret smiled and remembered. Other times, she looked at the photos as if they were strangers. His school offered support, allowing Tyler to adjust his schedule when needed. Brandon became a crucial support. "You don't have to go through this alone," Brandon said. "We're brothers now, remember." Margaret's diagnosis forced difficult decisions. Full-time care would soon be necessary, something Tyler couldn't provide alone. "Maybe it's time to consider a facility," Richard suggested carefully. "No," Tyler reacted strongly. "She never abandoned me. I won't abandon her." "It's not abandonment," Elizabeth said gently. "It's making sure she gets the best care." But Tyler was unyielding. They arranged for caregivers to help at home, keeping Margaret in familiar surroundings. One particularly hard day, Margaret had a moment of clarity. She called Tyler, fully aware. "My boy," she said with tears. "I know. What's happening to me?" "Grandma," Tyler began, but she interrupted. "Listen, I need to say this while I still can. You saved my life twice, once from poison, once from loneliness. You were the greatest gift I ever received." "You saved mine too," Tyler cried, hugging her. "Promise me one thing," Margaret asked. "When I don't remember anymore, don't give up on me. But don't give up on living your life either." "I promise," Tyler said, though he didn't know how he'd keep it. "And Tyler," Margaret continued, "I want you to know that even when my mind forgets, my heart will always remember you." Those were the last fully lucid words Margaret said to Tyler. After that, the good days grew rarer. Tyler devoted himself completely to Margaret's care, but didn't neglect his studies. He knew she'd be devastated if he ruined his future because of her. "How do you handle it?" a colleague once asked, seeing Tyler studying after a sleepless night caring for Margaret. "Love," Tyler answered simply. "When you truly love someone, you find strength you didn't even know you had." The story of Tyler and Margaret continued to inspire others. The school organized a fundraiser to help with medical expenses. The community rallied together. During a charity fair organized by Brandon, Tyler gave a speech that moved everyone. "Margaret taught me that family is a choice," he said. "She chose me when I was nobody. Now it's my turn to choose her every day, even when she doesn't remember who I am." The fair raised enough to ensure quality care for Margaret for years. Tyler cried with gratitude. "See," Brandon said, "you've touched so many lives that now they're giving back." Melissa also stepped up her presence, not to claim Tyler, but to support him. "Let me help," she asked. "I can stay with her for a few hours so you can rest." Tyler accepted the help, grateful. Their relationship would never be a traditional mother and son bond, but there was respect and mutual care growing. One day, while Melissa was caring for Margaret, she had a rare moment of recognition. "You're Tyler's mother," Margaret suddenly said. Melissa was surprised. "Yes, I am." "Thank you for bringing him into the world," Margaret said. "He's a gift," Melissa cried. The forgiveness she never dared to ask for was there, freely given by a mind that forgot almost everything, but remembered love. At 16, Tyler won a national essay contest writing about Margaret. The memory of the heart told their story, but more than that, it spoke of how love transcends even the loss of memory. "She may not remember my name," he wrote, "but when I hold her hand, she squeezes back. When I sing the songs she used to sing to me, she smiles. Love is beyond memory. It lives in touch, in care, in presence." The prize came with a college scholarship. Margaret, in a rare lucid moment, understood and cried with pride. "My boy is going to be a doctor," she said in wonder. "I'll be a writer, Grandma," Tyler gently corrected, "to tell our story and inspire others." "Even better," Margaret smiled. His senior year of high school was challenging. Margaret needed round-the-clock care and recognized almost no one. But Tyler kept his promise. He cared for her without giving up on his dreams. Graduation was bittersweet. Margaret was there in a wheelchair, not understanding what was happening, but when Tyler stepped on stage as class valedictorian, something shifted. "I dedicate this achievement to the woman who taught me the meaning of unconditional love," Tyler said into the microphone. "My grandmother, Margaret." And for a brief moment, Margaret seemed to understand. She raised a trembling hand, waved at him, tears streaming down her face. The entire audience was moved. They rose, applauding not just Tyler, but the woman who, even lost in her own mind, still radiated love. After graduation, Tyler faced the hardest decision of his life. He'd been accepted to a prestigious university in another city. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, but it meant leaving Margaret. "You have to go," Elizabeth said firmly. "It's what Margaret would want." "But how can I leave her?" Tyler agonized. "You're not leaving," Jennifer interjected. "You're honoring everything she did for you." It was Richard who offered the solution. "The university isn't too far. You can come back on weekends. And we'll take care of her like she's our own mother." With a heavy but hopeful heart, Tyler agreed. On the day of his departure, he sat with Margaret. "Grandma, I'm going to college," he said, even knowing she might not understand. "But I'll come back often. You'll never be alone." Margaret looked at him, and for a moment her eyes cleared. She touched his face gently. "My boy," she murmured. "My good boy." Tyler cried while holding her close, etching the moment in his heart. The university was a whole new world for Tyler. For the first time, he was surrounded by people who came from backgrounds similar to his, scholarship students, fighters, survivors. In his creative writing classes, his stories about Margaret moved professors and classmates. "You have a unique voice," said his professor, Dr. Rachel. "You take your pain and turn it into beauty." Tyler returned every weekend. Margaret rarely recognized him now, but he kept up the routine, reading to her, singing, holding her hand. One weekend, he found her agitated, calling out for someone. "Tyler!" she shouted. "Where's Tyler? The boy must be hungry." His heart broke and warmed at the same time. Even lost in time, she worried about him. "I'm here, Grandma," he said gently. "I've already eaten. It's okay." Margaret calmed down, though she clearly didn't recognize him as the Tyler she was looking for. During his second year at university, Tyler met Emily, a classmate who also cared for a grandfather with dementia. The connection was instant. "It's hard to explain to others," Emily said over coffee. "How you love someone who doesn't remember you. But when they do remember, even for a second, it makes all the pain worth it," Tyler finished. Their relationship grew slowly, built on mutual understanding and shared values. Emily joined Tyler on some visits to Margaret. "She was beautiful," Emily remarked, looking at old photos. "She is beautiful," Tyler corrected. "The illness doesn't take that away from her." Margaret, though unaware of who Emily was, seemed to like her. She held her hand, smiled when she sang. "She senses kindness," Tyler explained. "Even when the mind fails, the heart recognizes love." In his third year, Tyler published his first book. Memories of a Heart told stories of Margaret, himself, and their unlikely family. The dedication was simple. "To Margaret, who taught me that love is a verb, it's what we do every day." The launch was held at the hospital where it all began. Richard and Jennifer organized everything. Margaret was there in her chair, unaware but present. During a reading, Tyler chose the passage about the day they met. As he read, he noticed Margaret tilt her head as if something deep and buried was trying to surface. "The street boy clutched the black bag like it was treasure," Tyler read. Because to him, it was. It was his chance to save the only person who had ever treated him with dignity. A tear rolled down Margaret's cheek. She didn't remember, but she felt. The book was a modest but meaningful success. Sales helped cover Margaret's medical costs, completing the circle of care. Letters poured in from readers touched by the story. One, in particular, moved Tyler deeply. "Your story made me reach out to my mother after 15 years of estrangement. Thank you for showing it's never too late for love." "See, Grandma," Tyler said during a visit. "Our story is saving other families." Margaret smiled, lost in her world, but somehow present. Tyler's graduation was another bittersweet milestone. This time Margaret was even frailer, but the whole family rallied to bring her. When Tyler received his diploma, he dedicated it to her from the stage. "To Margaret Wilson, my grandmother, my savior, my example of unconditional love." The dean, knowing their story, made an exception. He called Margaret to the stage to receive an honorary tribute for her indirect contribution to education. Elizabeth and Jennifer helped her up. Tyler held her hand as the dean spoke about how a grandmother's love had created a writer who inspired thousands. Margaret looked around, confused, but when she saw Tyler, she smiled. For a moment, just a moment, there was recognition in her eyes. "My boy all grown up," she murmured. The entire auditorium wept. After graduation, Tyler faced job offers in big cities. Publishers wanted to hire him, newspapers offered columns, but he chose to stay close to Margaret. "I don't understand," a frustrated New York editor said. "You're wasting opportunities." "There's no greater opportunity than caring for the one who gave me everything," Tyler replied. He accepted remote work, writing and editing from home. Emily, now his fiancée, fully supported him. "It's one of the things I love about you," she said, "your loyalty." Tyler's wedding was simple yet emotional. Margaret was there, though increasingly absent. During the ceremony, when Tyler said his vows, he included a promise to Margaret. "I promise to honor the love I learned from you, Grandma. I promise to choose Emily every day, just as you chose me." Margaret, in her flower-adorned chair, seemed at peace. The honeymoon was postponed. Margaret had worsened, and Tyler couldn't bring himself to leave. "Go," Elizabeth insisted. She'd understand. "She's leaving," Tyler said, feeling it in his heart. I can't not be here. And he was right. 2 weeks after the wedding, Margaret entered her final decline. The family gathered, each saying goodbye in their own way. Elizabeth sang childhood songs. Jennifer shared stories from their hospital years. Richard thanked her for teaching him about humanity in medicine. Melissa asked for forgiveness and thanked her for the son Margaret had raised. Brandon, now a lawyer, cried like a child. Thank you for being the grandma I always wanted, Grandma Margaret. Emily held Margaret's hand. Thank you for raising the man I love. I promise to take care of him. Tyler was the last. He sat by the bed holding Margaret's fragile hand. Grandma, he began, his voice breaking. I know you might not understand, but I need to say it. You saved me. You gave me a home, a family, a future. You taught me that love isn't blood, it's a daily choice. Margaret opened her eyes, looking straight at him. By a final miracle, there was complete clarity in her gaze. Tyler, she said clearly, my boy, my savior. I love you. Grandma, Tyler wept. I love you too, Margaret replied. Always have, always will. Those were her last words. Margaret closed her eyes and passed peacefully, surrounded by all those she had touched with her love. Margaret's funeral was a celebration of life. Hundreds attended. Patients she'd helped at the hospital, street children Tyler assisted in her name, readers moved by her story. Tyler read a piece he'd written. Margaret taught me that orphans aren't just children without parents, but anyone without love. She erased my orphanhood by choosing to love me every day. Today, I don't mourn a loss. I celebrate the gift of being loved by her. Susan, who had been granted escorted permission to attend, cried throughout the service. Afterward, she asked to speak to Tyler. I'm sorry, she said brokenly. For everything. She deserved better from me. Yes, she did, Tyler agreed. But she taught me about forgiveness too. I hope you find peace. Margaret's house felt empty without her, but Tyler and Emily decided to keep it. They turned it into a shelter for vulnerable children. It's what she would have wanted, Tyler said at the opening, for her home to keep saving lives. Margaret's home quickly became a model. Tyler used his book royalties to fund the project. Volunteers came from everywhere, moved by the story. One day, Tyler found a boy in the garden, the same spot where he'd slept years ago. Hi, Tyler approached gently. Are you hungry? The boy, wary, nodded. Come, Tyler held out his hand. Let's get you some food. And if you want, you can sleep here tonight. You're safe. As the boy ate, Tyler saw Margaret in him, in the care, the patience, the unconditional love. You know, Tyler, told the boy, someone once saved me like this. Now it's my turn to keep the chain going. Years passed. Tyler became a respected writer, always writing about love, chosen family, and second chances. He had 3 children with Emily, Margaret, Richard, and Ethan. Why Ethan? Emily asked when they chose the name. It was my name on the streets, Tyler revealed, before Margaret gave me a new identity, a new life. Margaret's home grew, saving dozens of children. Some were adopted, others grew up and went out into the world, but all carried the legacy of unconditional love. Elizabeth, now elderly, moved nearby. I want to be close to family, she said. Jennifer retired and became a volunteer coordinator at the home. Richard opened a free clinic next door. Even Melissa, clean for years, helped however she could. It's amazing, Brandon observed during a family dinner, how one person's love created all this. It wasn't just her love, Tyler corrected. It was her teaching me to multiply that love. At 40, Tyler received an award for his body of work. In his speech, he told Margaret's story once more. 30 years ago, a street kid walked into a hospital with a black bag, he began. Today, that boy stands here because a woman chose to love him. Margaret taught me that we don't save people with grand gestures, but with daily choices of love. In the audience, his children listened proudly. Margaret, the eldest, was especially moved. Dad, she said afterward, Grandma Margaret must be so proud. She is, Tyler said with certainty. I feel her in every life we save, every story I tell, every choice of love I make. That evening, Tyler visited Margaret's grave. Emily and the children joined him. as they often did. "Grandma Margaret," little Richard said solemnly, "thank you for saving my dad, so he could be my dad." Tyler smiled through tears. The circle was complete. The street kid had become a man, a father, a savior to others, all because a woman chose to look beyond appearances. "Thank you, Grandma," Tyler whispered, "for teaching me that family is a verb, not a noun. It's what we do, not what we are." The wind blew softly, and for a moment Tyler swore he felt Margaret's gentle touch on his face. Love, he had learned, truly transcends even death. On the way home, little Margaret took her father's hand. "Dad, when I grow up, I want to save people like you do." Tyler squeezed her small hand. "You already do, sweetheart. Every time you choose kindness, you're saving someone." "How?" she asked curiously. "Because sometimes," Tyler explained, repeating what Margaret had taught him, "all someone needs is to know they're seen, that they matter, that they're loved, and anyone can give that." Margaret's home celebrated 10 years of operation. To mark the occasion, they organized a reunion for everyone who had passed through its doors. It was moving to see the transformations. Kevin, the first boy Tyler took in, was now a doctor. "Dr. Richard inspired me," he said. "I want to care for kids like I once was." Sarah, a girl who arrived at 7, had become a teacher. "I learned here that education changes lives." Dozens of stories, each living, proof that Margaret's multiplied love continued saving generations. During the event, Tyler was surprised by a visitor. An elderly woman, accompanied by a caregiver, asked to speak with him privately. "You don't know me," she began, "but 30 years ago, I was the head nurse at the hospital. I saw when that boy brought the black bag. I never forgot." Tyler felt a lump in his throat. "I followed your story in the papers," she continued, "and I came to thank you for reminding me why I chose to be a nurse, to make a difference, not just follow protocols." She handed him an envelope. "It's a donation for the home, modest but from the heart." After she left, Tyler opened the envelope. It wasn't modest. It was enough to build a new wing. But what moved him most was the note inside, "To the boy with the black bag who taught me that heroes don't wear capes. They wear courage and love." Emily found Tyler crying in the office. "What's wrong?" she asked worriedly. Tyler showed her the note. "Sometimes I forget how much our story has touched people. Margaret always said kindness begets kindness." She was right. She always was, Emily hugged her husband, "and you honor that every day." Tyler's children grew up surrounded by Margaret's stories. Even though they never met her, they felt her presence in every value taught, every act of kindness practiced. "Mom," Ethan, the youngest, asked one day, "why does Dad cry when he tells stories about Grandma Margaret?" "Because deep love never stops hurting when we lose someone," Emily explained. "But the pain is beautiful because it proves the love was real." "I wish I could have met her," the boy said sadly. "But you have," Emily said with a smile. "Every time your father hugs you, it's her hugging you. Every bedtime story, it's her telling it. Every I love you, it's her speaking through him." Ethan thought for a moment and smiled. "Then she never really died?" "Never," Emily confirmed. "People like Margaret live forever in the lives they've changed." One day, Tyler received an unexpected letter. It was from a lawyer, informing him that an anonymous reader, moved by his books, had left a substantial inheritance to Margaret's home. "I can't believe it," Tyler told Emily. "It's enough to keep it running for decades." "Margaret still attracts angels," Emily remarked, "even after she's gone." With the new resources, they expanded their work. They founded the Margaret Wilson Foundation, offering not just shelter but full education, psychological support, and career preparation. Richard, even in retirement, insisted on taking shifts at the clinic. "It's my way of honoring Margaret," he said. Jennifer, now 70, still coordinated volunteers with the energy of a young woman. "Margaret taught me that age is just a number," she joked. Elizabeth, the sister Margaret discovered late in life, became the official storyteller. The children would gather around her to hear about Grandma Margaret, who saved everyone with love. "Is it true she adopted a street kid?" one child asked. "It's true," Elizabeth confirmed, And that boy grew up and built this place for you." "Wow!" the children exclaimed. "So we can be special too." "You already are," Elizabeth said with tears in her eyes. "Margaret taught me that we're all special, we just need someone to see it in us." Tyler's 20th book was a full biography of Margaret. He researched her childhood and interviewed people who knew her at different stages of her life. "I want the world to know the whole woman," he explained to Emily. "Not just the one who saved me, but the one who saved so many others before me." The research revealed surprises. Margaret had volunteered in orphanages for decades. She had secretly paid for several children's education. She had temporarily taken in dozens of people in need. "She never told me," Tyler said in awe. She was humble about her kindness. "Truly good people don't boast," Emily observed. "They just do good." The book, Margaret, A Life of Love Choices, became a bestseller. But what moved Tyler most were the reactions. A 60-year-old woman wrote, "Margaret took me in for 3 months when I fled an abusive marriage 40 years ago. I never knew she kept saving people. I cried through the whole book." A man sent a message. "I was one of the kids she helped educate. Today I'm a judge. I never forgot, and I've always tried to pay it forward by helping others." There were hundreds of testimonies. Margaret had been an angel long before she met Tyler. "You know what this means?" Tyler told his children. "Grandma Margaret didn't save me by chance. It was who she was, someone who saw the value in everyone." "We want to be like that too," Margaret, the eldest daughter, declared. "Then be," Tyler said. "Every day, choose love over indifference, kindness over judgment. That's how we honor Grandma Margaret." At 50, Tyler was invited to speak at Harvard about literature and social impact. He hesitated. It meant leaving the United States for weeks. "Go," Emily insisted. "Margaret would be proud. Take our story to the world." During the lecture, Tyler began, as he always did. 40 years ago, a street kid walked into a hospital with a black bag. The audience of academics listened in reverent silence. When he finished, the room erupted in a standing ovation. A professor approached him afterward. "Your story proves literature can change the world. How many Margarets are out there, quietly, saving lives?" "Thousands," Tyler replied. "We just need to open our eyes to see them. And more importantly, we need to choose to be one of them." Back in the United States, Tyler was met with a surprise. His children had organized a national campaign, Be a Margaret, encouraging people to perform one selfless act of kindness each day. "Dad always says Grandma Margaret lives in our choices," Richard explained. "So we thought, why not spread those choices?" The campaign went viral. Stories of kindness flooded social media with the hashtag #BeAMargaret. A woman paid for a stranger's medicine. A businessman offered a job to a homeless man. A child shared their lunch with a hungry classmate. "Look what you've started," Tyler said tearfully to his children. "It wasn't us," Ethan corrected. "It was Grandma Margaret. We just gave it a little push." The city government decided to honor Margaret by naming a street after her. The old Magnolia Street, where she had lived, became Margaret Wilson Street. At the unveiling, hundreds gathered. Tyler was asked to speak. "Margaret would hate all this fuss," he began, drawing laughter. "She'd say, 'Stop wasting time with a plaque and go help someone.'" Everyone laughed and nodded. That was exactly what Margaret would say. "But this matters," Tyler continued seriously, "because every time someone walks down this street, they'll remember that an ordinary person did extraordinary things just by choosing to love. And maybe, just maybe, they'll choose to love too." After the ceremony, a little girl approached Tyler. She was about 10, the same age he had been when he met Margaret. "Mr. Tyler," she said shyly, "I live at Margaret's home. I wanted to thank you for saving me." Tyler knelt to meet her eyes. "I didn't save you, sweetheart." Margaret did. "I'm just carrying on her work." "But you chose to keep going," the girl insisted. "So you could have chosen to forget." The child's wisdom moved him. "You're right, and you know what? One day you'll choose to carry on this work too. I promise," she said solemnly. Tyler saw Margaret in the girl's determined eyes. The cycle continued. That night, Tyler woke from a vivid dream. Margaret sat in the garden of the house, young and healthy. "I'm proud of you, my boy," she said in the dream. "I miss you every day," Tyler replied. "But I'm right here." Margaret smiled. "In every child you save, in every story you tell, in every loving choice you make. I never left, I just multiplied." Tyler woke in tears, but they were joyful. The dream, real or not, confirmed what he'd always known. Love transcends everything, even death. At 55, Tyler received news that Margaret's home would be replicated in other cities. The model had been so successful that the federal government wanted to expand it. "Each one will bear her name," the minister said, "and follow her principles: unconditional love, second chances, chosen family." Tyler openly wept. Margaret, the simple woman who had opened her home to a street kid, would now have her legacy spread across the country. "Grandma," he whispered, looking up at the sky. "Look what your love has built." The first Margaret's home outside there. Hometown was inaugurated by Richard, now 85 but still active. "Margaret taught me we never retire from love," he said in his speech. "As long as there's breath, there's a chance to make a difference." Jennifer by his side nodded. She transformed all of us, from weary professionals into humans who care. The inauguration was broadcast nationally. The entire country now knew the story of Margaret and Tyler. But more importantly, they understood the message: anyone can save lives through daily choices of love. Tyler's grandchildren grew up, each finding their own way to honor Margaret. Melissa became a psychologist specializing in traumatized children. Richard followed in his godfather's footsteps as a doctor. Ethan surprised everyone by becoming a social worker. "Why social work?" Tyler asked curiously. "Because I want to be on the front lines," Ethan explained, "to find the Tylers out there before it's too late." The answer filled Tyler with pride. His children had fully embraced Margaret's legacy. Emily developed an educational program based on Margaret's story. Heart Education taught empathy, kindness, and social responsibility in schools. "Children need to learn that success isn't just money or fame," she explained. "It's how many lives you touch positively." The program was adopted by hundreds of schools. Teachers reported remarkable changes. Bullying decreased, solidarity grew, children began looking out for one another. "It's Margaret," Tyler said, moved, "teaching a new generation just as she taught me." One day Tyler received an unexpected visitor, a well-dressed man in his 70s, visibly emotional. "You don't know me," he began, "but 45. Years ago, your grandmother Margaret took me in when I ran away from home at 15. I stayed just a week, but she changed my life." Tyler listened, fascinated, as the man recounted how Margaret welcomed him without questions, offering food, shelter, and above all, dignity. "She made me promise I'd study," the man continued. "Said education was the one thing no one could take from me. I followed her advice. Today I own a chain of schools." The man handed Tyler an envelope. "I came to repay her. It's a perpetual scholarship for children from Margaret's home at all my schools." After he left, Tyler reflected on how many lives Margaret had touched that he'd never know. How many quiet acts of kindness she'd taken with her. Tyler's 60th birthday was celebrated at Margaret's home. 3 generations gathered, those Margaret had saved directly, those Tyler had saved in her name, and those people had saved in turn. "It's a tree," Elizabeth's young great-granddaughter observed. "Grandma Margaret is the root and we're all the branches and leaves." "What a beautiful way to see it," Tyler said, moved. During the celebration, each person shared how Margaret directly or indirectly had changed their life. Hours passed with stories, tears, and gratitude. "You know what amazes me most?" Jennifer, now 90, remarked. "Margaret never set out to do anything grand. She just loved whoever crossed her path, and look at the result." "It's the revolution of ordinary love," Richard agreed. "Proof we don't need to be extraordinary to do extraordinary things." That night, Tyler went up to the rooftop of Margaret's home. Gazing at the stars, he thought of her. "We did it, Grandma," he whispered to the wind. "Your choice to love a street boy changed the world. Not the whole world, but the world of thousands. And they'll change the world for thousands more." A shooting star streaked across the sky. Tyler smiled. Sign or coincidence, he chose to believe it was Margaret saying, "Keep going." Margaret's legacy had become a movement. Margaret's homes now existed in every state. Thousands of children found love, hope, and a future. Universities studied the Margaret model of care. Theses were written about how unconditional love could break cycles of poverty and abandonment. "It's science now," Tyler joked with Emily. They proved Margaret was right. Love transforms. "She'd actually be mad?" Emily laughed. "She'd say you don't need a study to know love works." It was true. Margaret, in her simplicity, intuitively understood what took academics years to prove. Tyler kept writing until the end. His last book, dictated from his bed when his strength failed, was simply titled, "Thank You." "It's my final letter to Margaret," he explained to his children, "and to everyone who carried on her love." The book was a reflection on gratitude, on how one act of kindness can echo through generations, on how we can all be a Margaret to someone. When Tyler passed at 85, it was like Margaret, surrounded by love, at peace, knowing the work would continue. His funeral was even larger than Margaret's. Thousands came to give thanks, to share how his words, inspired by Margaret, had changed lives. "He taught us we all have a black bag," one woman said tearfully, "something precious to give that can save someone. We just need the courage to give it." Emily, even in grief, smiled. Tyler lived and died honoring Margaret. The street boy had kept his promise. At the cemetery, they buried Tyler beside Margaret. On his tombstone, as he requested, "Only Tyler, the boy with the black bag who chose love." Tyler's children and grandchildren took up the legacy. The Margaret Wilson Foundation became a global model for compassionate care. Delegations came to learn the Margaret way of transforming lives. "It's simple," Margaret, the granddaughter, explained to visitors. "See the person, not the situation. Love first, ask later. Offer dignity along with help. But how do you scale this?" they'd ask. "One person at a time," was always the answer, like Grandma Margaret did. Years passed, decades. The world changed, technology advanced, but the Margaret principle remained. Unconditional love transforms lives. Children who never knew Margaret or Tyler grew up hearing their stories. They learned that real heroes don't fly. They choose to love when it'd be easier to ignore. A century after that day in the hospital, one of Tyler's great-granddaughters found a boy sleeping in the garden of Margaret's home, history repeating. "Hi," she said gently, as she'd learned was family tradition. "Are you hungry?" The boy, scared, nodded. "Come," she held out her hand. "My name is Margaret, like my great-great-grandmother. She started all this by saving a boy like you." As the boy ate, she told the story that defined her family, about love that transcends, about choices that echo through time, about how anyone can be extraordinary just by choosing kindness. "Is it true?" the boy asked in awe. "Every word," Margaret confirmed. "And you know what? You can be part of this story too. We all can. You just have to choose." The boy thought, then smiled. "I choose." And so, Margaret's love continued. Not in monuments or statues, but in every outstretched hand, every second chance given, every daily choice to see the worth in another human. Because Margaret was right. Family isn't about blood, it's about choice. And love, true love, never dies, it only multiplies, saving the world one person at a time. At the entrance of the original Margaret's home, a simple plaque summed it all up. Here, love defeated abandonment. Here, a boy with a black bag found a grandmother. Here, a family was born that embraces the world. Come in and be part of this story. And every day someone did, and the story went on, because as long as there are Margarets choosing to love and Tylers needing to be loved, hope remains alive. And somewhere Margaret smiles. Her boy kept his promise, love won, the end. Dear listener, we hope this story touched your heart as it did ours. Share in the comments where you're watching us from and if you know a Margaret in your life. Do you think unconditional love can truly change the world? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave your like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories. Thank you.